This is In Touch with Terri, a power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetics industry.
I just discovered your podcast, and I feel like I've hit a gold mine.
She's our inspiration.
This is someone who's got a lot of knowledge. She's been there, done that.
Terri Ross is a former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, founder and CEO of Terri Ross Consulting, and co-founder of the 4S Summit, a sales and business mastery workshop for aesthetic professionals.
Terri is always approachable, always there for you.
It's nice to have somebody in your corner that can say, I got it.
In Touch with Terri will bring you solutions to increase operational and employee efficiency and practice profitability. Plus, feature some of the top industry experts as guests.
Terri, your courses and your podcast are just so helpful.
She made me feel like I could do this.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
Now, here's Terri.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of In Touch with Terri. Really excited to be here. Thank you guys for always tuning in, for listening, for your feedback. I love y'all so much. We're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart because it's really passionate about and what I do and spend a lot of my time doing, which is training. But today I have an amazing guest from New Zealand. He's actually in my house right now. He's in Los Angeles. And Stephen Handysides. He is no stranger to aesthetics. He is a good friend. We've been friends for about 20 years. I'll let him talk a little bit more about his background, but he's an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, global business leader, really known for building innovative digital platforms that really connect people and businesses worldwide. And so he is the founder of Handy Media and VUnite, and I'm going to be really excited to dive in, even as it relates to Terri Ross Consulting. He's really helping shape the education piece around not just aesthetics, but many other industries as well, the virtual events, and just global platforms. So he's originally from New Zealand. His career has spanned multiple countries and industries, and he's just a badass and an innovator. So Stephen, hi, honey. So glad you're here.
Yeah, exciting to be here, Terri. I love coming to the US, sort of where I spent about 5 years, I think, wasn't it? I had an office in Newport Beach and then went to Vegas and lived out there for a while when I was really into the events and training side, which was super cool. But as you say, I've lived pretty much 20 years overseas. I was in London for, about 15 years. It just disappeared on me. And then back in New Zealand at the moment, but we're always back out to the US where we do, see most of our customers and catch up with colleagues like yourself. Hey.
Listen, I think this is a really important topic, and I'm really excited. I know you and I now have been working together. Gosh, it feels like years just because we've been friends. But you've been super instrumental as a friend to me, and then with VUnite, which, by the way, you guys, Terri Ross Consulting is working with Stephen so that I can equally help build and scale what we do and reach more people. But Stephen, let's just dive in. I think, I work with a lot of private equity companies. You work with a lot of companies. First, I know I did a brief intro, but let's tell the listeners who don't know you a little bit, if you can share a little bit more about your background in VUnite specifically, what you do, who you work with, and why it's really important, and then we'll dive in.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so been in probably the medical aesthetics industry for around 22 years now. My career started back in 2005 in London. Worked for a number of different, companies in aesthetics, in sales and marketing roles, and then launched Handy Media back in 2009. And we had a video production company where we were producing lots of videos for short videos for med spas and all of the medical suppliers that we know today, pharma companies, medical device. We launched something called My Face, My Body, which was really, really cool. It's an online platform. Then we created an online television show. We had our luxury publication. Most people knew us when we launched My Face, My Body Awards all around the world, from the US, Australia, and London. And then it was back in 2019 where we launched the very first virtual global conference called GVAS, Global Virtual Aesthetic Summit. Mm-hmm. And it was a time where webinars people were starting to just use webinars. And when a friend and I, we went all around the world pitching at the physical shows that there was a place for something that was virtual, that could bring the best content, the best speakers in the world to all of the doctors in developing countries. There was no boundary with virtual, but we really had to sit back, write the roadmap for it. And then we had a great support from the industry. We had about 240 of the best speakers in the world that are always on the big stage. They came in and provided their time free of charge, which was great. We had about 150 vendors and 5,000 attendees. So we launched that in 2019, and it was a lot of fun. And then, as I say, a lot of it went right, and there was stuff that went wrong just because we just had no idea. But we had 4 different tracks and 4 different languages. I mean, we were pushing the boundaries as we always do, and being innovators and pioneers in the technology space. And then 2020 hit, and then the world changed. Everyone was looking for virtual conferencing software. So we worked with American Dermatology Society. We worked with a lot of societies around the world, sort of stuck to medical aesthetics, worked with global companies, pharmaceutical companies from Allergan's to Menarini's, etc., running their global conferencing. And then it wasn't really until a few years ago where everyone was saying, look, we love your immersive, interactive nature of what you built with VU. Could we bring that into onboarding and training? Could that be shifted over where the high levels of engagement we're seeing with people attending events? Could that be done in training? So that's really, so VUnite today is probably 80%. We work with companies like Marini Skin Solutions, one of our clients. We work with Dermapen World globally. So we work with suppliers that really are looking for a single platform, a training solution where they can use it for their internal employees, their customers, and their distributors and their partners. Everyone's looking to consolidate now into a single solution. Same with like private equity. We deal with a number of big, large med spa groups that always have the challenge of, when you start to grow and scale quickly, how do you consolidate? How do you drive consistency around your training? It's not to replace in-person training. How can we complement? How can we track and measure digital training, virtual training in a way that it has a direct correlation with how are we improving revenue performance? Are we saving costs? So that's where we're at today. And with VUnite, if you look at it, obviously it's very immersive. It's very interactive. Corporates love it for how specific they can get to their branding. So it's not just, here's an LMS, you log on and it's a place to store your content. It's very, very different with VUnite and being able to personalize training.
So you guys, listeners and my tribe, this is really, really important. We have, we're not even at the end of March. I think I've been now to 13 states in less than 3 months. And I'm so blessed and I'm so happy and so honored that people value training, right? We talk about how do we scale practices, and the how is really the important piece. But, the impetus of today's podcast and why I wanted to have Stephen on, not just because he's going to be in town, we're going to be at Medical Spa Show together, but I have retained them to use VUnite to also help put our training programs into this module. And I think Stephen said it, this new age of immersiveness, because people have said, oh, Terri, I've taken the training. This isn't a one-time thing. So Stephen, let's really dive in, because I loved even your philosophy about if we're going to have training, how is it tied to actual performance? And so what's wrong? What's broken with traditional training and the way, whether it's myself, companies that you work with, or practices onboarding people, it's hard. And then there's inconsistencies, and then there's high turnover. And so what's broken in today's sort of traditional training methods?
Yeah, I think in the past, training has been very much a ticking the box situation where if they have the content and they have courses, particularly around compliance, which is not usually the most interesting training to do, but it's needed and necessary to avoid any risk to any business. And it hasn't really been fun in the past to take compliance, compulsory training. So I think, training has really been, we call it static, or it's very passive. People just click through content, but they don't often retain it. When you think about training anyone on new technologies or treatments, a lot of companies, whether it's in person or whether it's digital, they tend to just overwhelm people, whether that's employees or customers, with all of their content all in one go. And then they just don't retain it, right? And then they realize why they're not seeing results or they're not seeing sales. It's because you can't expect someone to just automatically remember everything and be a superstar on day one. So I think training being very passive, very static, very PowerPoint heavy without those interactive elements, no real-time data that you can really understand, for example, where your employees are at. If there's no data or tracking, how do you actually know if there is an issue, where the knowledge gaps are? So you see companies are investing more and more into training, but unless you can prove the ROI within the platform, then private equity companies or the CEOs of businesses, they see it as an expense rather than a profit center, which is where it needs to be. Oh my God,
you're speaking my language, literally speaking my language. And I'm so proud. I mean, we have so many case studies to share about, but it's exactly what you just said. And let's just use, if we can, for an example, but when people want to either retain us or they want sales trainings, because you're doing it right for other companies as well with their collateral. To Stephen's point, we know without the data and the KPIs to measure a baseline. So for what I teach, right, we're looking at conversions, average patient spend, revenue per hour, retention. Those are just 4 KPIs, you guys. And so if you don't know it, let's have a conversation. And 2, if we have to go back so that you can see how well your team is actually, maybe they've never even been trained. But I love, Stephen, that this is going to allow people a greater opportunity. And to your point, not just I watched it and I clicked through and I passed the test, but how do we keep them in there so that they're motivated to want to be in there? So leading to the second question, how do you think companies and the way that they train their teams is changing and then will change in the future?
Yeah, I think at the moment, a lot of companies are still a little bit overwhelmed on where do they start. They normally have a lot of content and it's scattered in so many different places on different platforms. So they might have some stuff in their CRM or on a drive somewhere which the company's using, and then they might have an LMS where there's some content there. A lot of the time when we spend so much time at the start in discovery calls, trying to understand, it's not just about one stakeholder, it's not the training manager, but it's also listening and talking and understanding from, the head of sales or marketing or, the people that are on the front line, is understanding all of the challenges around what they're facing. And I think today, where it's all changing is rather than sort of one-off onboarding, it's how can you keep employees or customers engaged for 12 months or 2 years? And it's very difficult. But I think this is where a good system where there's not just good content, but there's rewards. And so it's really important, when you're looking at training, can you find a system that you can use gamification? So it might be that they get little refresher training, once a week or once a month, where they'll come back on. There'll be a little bit of just small little fun quizzes or a refresh of 2 minutes of some really important content. And then what can you, again, it's really trying to recognize this people achievement over time. So, where I've seen a lot of companies do well is they might have 3 different levels of competency. So the first, it might take 1 year to get to the first level, and then second year and third year. So rather than thinking one off and it can all be done within weeks, you really have to start looking at the larger picture. And you may not have the content today in that format where you can pull stuff and stretch stuff over a longer period of time. But that's where, an instructional designer that knows how to build courses into microlearning. I think the big shift today is rather than producing long video content, we're constantly working with companies to say, this 1 hour piece of content, could we break it down into 10 pieces and could we stretch that over a number of different months? So I would say, Terri, it's about how do we create training that is not overwhelming people. It gets them highly engaged with fun learning, but it's also gives them little rewards and different levels of recognition and achievement over a longer period of time.
I love that so much. And I can only, again, equate to what we do and what you and your team have been helping me do in cutting my content out. But I love what you said is that when practices are onboarding a new hire, or right, wanting their providers to level up. You hit the nail on the head. It's how do we give them these micro bits of information that they can actually go execute, right? Go implement right away and see a change. And then if not, to your point, no one's going to be a master doing it one time. Go, okay, shit, I tried it, but then let me go back to that. And I think more people, I'm hoping from this podcast that they can really embrace that running an aesthetic practice is hard. And this is why we started For Us, which I'm leaving on Wednesday, right? In 2 days. No one's teaching practices on how to do that. So I think the more we can embrace and what you do and offer is going to be so important. And so what makes V-Unite different? People, to your point, there is like school and Kajabi and, every freaking, Patreon, every whatever platform out there. You guys are very special and unique. And so what makes it different?
We really did build the system specifically for med spas, med spa groups in particular. They have a lot of challenges around geography and different locations, and same with suppliers, where they're running across different countries, with distributors as they lose that consistency, and it's a risk to the business in terms of the wrong messaging, sort of getting out. I suppose with what we've done with V-Unite is we haven't just looked at offering a technology solution. It was more about what are your current challenges at the moment with training in general. That could be with your in-personal training, but a lot of the time it starts with the content. They don't really have a strategy behind the content itself, but also the delivery of content. So a lot of the time we end up spending, helping them with, we're looking at all of their existing content. If it's all in PowerPoints or PDFs, etc., we map out a way and we have instructional designers in our team that will turn all of the static content into interactive courses, which could be using SCORM, it could be using H5P, it could be using a lot of these virtual lead presenter content that help tell the story about your products or tell the story about different important training modules. So we look at it from initially, what is the content itself? So we look at helping and elevating that content experience. Then the platform, which we completely develop a look and feel. So it could be an immersive practice. We've created immersive universities to really fit the brand of the particular client. Because as I say, the difference between just logging on and you go into like a Dropbox file and you see the videos to watch, the difference is, and you've seen it firsthand, you're zooming in to an immersive, a med spa environment, and then I can go into a treatment room and then I can watch my courses and content there. The engagement is on a completely different level. And that's, I suppose, where our big, point of difference is. We built it for engagement, not just as a platform where you store your content.
And so before we just move on to the next question, like and I'm familiar since we've been working together, but for the listeners, how, other than gamification and these rewards, are there reports, Stephen? Like how do you know, I guess that, right? How do you know that they're in there, it's actually working, retaining, that they're getting it? And then how do you keep people in there?
Yeah, so we have some pretty intelligent dashboards that measure everything, I suppose, to do with engagement. So, some of the important metrics is, around, completion rates or drop-off rates. Which pieces of content are people engaging in more? Where are they getting stuck? And these are the things. So we look at measuring training from a really granular level. It's not who's completed a course. We can understand from a single individual where they're getting stuck with content, where there's challenges around understanding the content. So as a corporate company, for example, one of the big med spa groups, they can look at the data from an individual standpoint, employee. They can look at it as a location, so they can compare the locations on, as a team, how are they doing in terms of training and education across the organization. And I think the most important thing in how we're measuring engagement is what we've done is we've taken certain data points, just like what you were saying as well, is we need to understand where are you currently at? What's the current engagement that you're getting off your existing LMS system or your content. Now with V-Unite, in terms of what we try and do is we speed up the onboarding process. We're trying to get people more competent faster. So a lot of the times we work out with the company, what is a fully competent provider or an esthetician worth to your business in 1 month? So if we can speed that up by 2 months, then that could mean an extra $50,000 or $100,000 gained each month. So what you'll see in the platform is you'll be able to see, what does this engagement actually mean to the business? We've noticed that, we've got 70% of people engaged in the organization, but we've actually seen that this means an extra $1.2 million gained over the year because of that, or X amount money saved because the retention is higher. Now, we can't say with training that we're completely responsible for the retention because there's other things that are factored in, but everyone has said, and the facts are out there, a good onboarding process shows that a direct correlation with employees retain longer. But a lot of the time, the owners can't really see how to work that out, monetary, because if an employee leaves, then it might be 3 months before you can get someone else and onboard them. So you've lost 3 months of revenue. It costs to recruit. We know that to recruit the right person. And then it takes maybe another month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months to get someone up to speed. So you think about 7 months of lost revenue. What does that actually mean in terms of dollar figures in your business? So this is what the system does and helps you work out. And it's really great for if you've got private equity involved or a board of people that you have to show we're spending this money on training because it's actually making a difference.
Yeah. You have this quote on here and I want to read it. I'm so grateful for the tribe and for this podcast and for everybody listening. You guys know that I only put out and have guests that I find are valuable, that bring something important to the table to help you run your business. And with the industry being so commoditized and so competitive, if we don't, and you have it on here, training is not an event and it's not an expense. We're in delivering content, we're driving behaviors. We're driving behaviors and we're driving a performance system. And no one should be ignorant to be oblivious to this, right? They can't, but sadly they do. They do. They think it's right. I'm not going to wait, or they're, and I, with all due respect, right? They're like the industry came in, the reps came in. I get it. The reps should come in and support you. But what Stephen and I are really talking to you guys about is like legitimate, like training programs, start to finish, accountability built in, right? Gamification, behavioral changes. So people can't say, Stephen, I didn't know how to do it. They're going to know how to do it, right? And then we can hold them accountable, which kind of goes right into the next question is, and I think you mentioned it about the dashboards, is that really how within V-Unite they can hold people accountable? Like, is it working? One, you're going to see it in their performance, I hope. And to your point, you're going to see it in addition to revenue growth, but then they're going to have this visible dashboard, correct? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, there's different dashboards. So, for example, in a med spa, you can look at the performance of each of the different employees. And then as for corporate, they can look at all the metrics across the different locations. And I suppose it's where we're trying to improve the knowledge retention because we're all very, very busy. When we get to work, we might have a full diary of employment. Yeah. It's really, really difficult to get to go on and do online learning and then be fully focused. So this is where I suppose we've also brought in AI. So there's like an AI tutor that will remember when you logged in last, and you won't need to start again. It will say, have you thought about this? Or this is giving you a recommendation of where possibly your knowledge gap is. And so I think, with that extra intelligence today, that's going to help a lot. Also being able to use the AI component where if you just can't remember something, being able to just write something in and get an answer really, really quickly from the training where the AI is pulling from. So, AI is your friend, I suppose, and we do use it within the platform to help you measure and track, but also retain information quite quickly and on the go. And
let's unpack this a little bit because you said something, and obviously most people know that I had built a SaaS company in the middle of COVID. I'm blessed to do that. And I sold that, or we merged with another company in 2023. And I'm right, you see my personality. People want me in person. It's like Terri Robbins shit, right? And I love it, right? It fills my cup. But from an ongoing perspective, and to your point, not everybody can retain it and then continue to remember it. And it is the ongoing. It's hard. It's hard if you've never had some of these trainings, especially when it comes to consultations or conversions on the phone or conversions in the treatment room, and we're trying to maximize revenue potential. It's really hard if somebody hasn't had that professional training. But, you had in here, like, why? And I know why. Like, if we're, to your point, if you're walking in your practice, you have a full patient on the books. It's like then, because this is what I hear, and I'm sure you do too. When are we supposed to do it? And it kind of bothers me because I'm like, if somebody's just diehard about learning, right? There's no glass ceiling. We have to keep learning. We have to keep growing, or else, right? If we're dying. But do you ever hear that? Like, because engagement is a problem, and then they're like, well, when am I supposed to do it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you look at the Duolingo, I don't know if you've ever learned another language. A lot of people will know that Duolingo app. I mean, it's fantastic. It makes learning a language really, really fun, right?
Really? Okay.
And it's because there's always like little games attached to it, So if I do my thing today in terms of my little activity, it gives you extra credits or points. And I suppose, that's what we're trying to do with the Unite is to make learning fun. Because I think a lot of people, they love to learn and be challenged, but it's got to be packaged in a way that it's not, here's a PowerPoint or here's something static to look at. It's fun. It's, we love playing. So it's our natural ability. So if that's, and again, it's also looking at bite-sized bits of information, because that's how we learn best. And if you look at the younger generation coming through, that's how they learn, right? Look at TikTok, how short those videos are. I mean, that's the learning we have to adapt to now. We can't no longer have the big PowerPoints and expect everyone to retain what's written in there.
So as we kind of, come to kind of this end here, and I think and I'm really excited to be with you at Medical Spa Show. You're working with some big groups, some private equity companies. We're working together, you guys. I'm so excited what we are building for you. Stephen, it's going to be like next level shit. It's incredible. I want your feedback on what this looks like. But Stephen, I know who can benefit. So you're working with companies, private equities, med spas, right? Plastic surgery. You're working, but for the listeners out there, you guys, if you are truly struggling with education, everything Stephen and I are talking about, what he's unpacking here in this podcast, training your team, consistency, accountability, not fragmentation in one place, you really, really, really can benefit from talking to him. And I say this because, like I said, I'm personally working with him to provide you guys with more information in a more scalable way that's ongoing in addition to what I currently do. But you're working with private equity, big, huge companies, brands. And really what I want to say, you guys, if you are listening to this and you have a practice or you're a company with a product and you're like, the training, the onboarding, it's hard, right? It's all fragmented. I'm struggling with it. I'm having high turnover, whatever it is. I hope that this is resonating with you and that you're going to want to talk to Stephen for the same reasons I am. But Stephen, elaborate a little bit more. Who can benefit from the Unite? Who's your avatar client?
Yeah, I think with regards to suppliers, it's a corporate company that wants to consolidate a lot of, maybe they've got lots of different software platforms and they want to consolidate all of their resources, the training for their employees, their customers and their distributors into a single platform that's interactive and immersive, and it's got all the data points there. I think with med spa groups, like if you've got a med spa, which is probably 5 locations plus, you've got a large number of employees, then I would say you're a good target audience for the Unite platform, where we've already got pathways laid out within the med spa aesthetic industry. So we've got already training programs for estheticians and providers and things like that. I think you'd probably benefit most. I think from a single med spa or a practitioner, what we did do is we built over 50 of our own modules. So all of the compliance modules, HIPAA, OSHA, harassment in the workplace, and then lots of modules around sales performance across all of the different treatments. So ultrasound, radio frequency, dermal fillers. What we did is we created all of these modules for onboarding. new staff, which covers how do you speak to potential patients over the phone during consultations, how do you upsell, cross-sell. So we've got tons and tons of courses and content. If you're an individual that just wants good knowledge, then you can come onto the Unite Marketplace. But if you want to use the system at its full potential, then it's those that are trying to scale with multiple locations and have geographical barriers.
I love it. I love it so much. I mean, this is the future. Training is evolving, you guys. It has to move from like a support function. It's the growth engine. Your team is your greatest expense, but can be your biggest asset, but only if they know how to do the respective job. And so kind of, Stephen, as we wrap up, what does the future of training enablement really look like? And then if people want to contact you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, cool. So I think with the future, it's really around personalization or adaptive learning journeys. No longer is it around come to a platform. It's ticking off the box that someone's actually watched content. People want to feel that there is training that is relevant to them and their role. So this is where AI comes in a lot, where AI can give real-time feedback, recommendations on the go, and then everything is matched to outcomes, performance outcomes. So a system really needs to have all of the metrics there that you can justify the cost and the ROI from that. So, a lot of the time, if you're interested, we have a discovery call just to understand your challenges, your needs. You may or may not be a good fit for the Unite, but you can reach me on, so Stephen with a PH, STEPHEN at v-unite.com, or just go to the website v-unite.com and then you can see what we're all about.
Okay, tribe. This was really, really, really good shit. And I'm going to say, because it's what I do often, what I'm passionate about, what we teach here at Terri Ross Consulting. Training, one, is not an option. It should be tied to revenue, or you really got to be honest with yourself and just say, God, this is really just a cost center. I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing together. Stephen and I are going to be at Medical Spa Show in a couple of weeks. So this is going to drop. And if you're going to be there, come see us, have a drink with us, schedule a meeting with him. But you guys, I can't wait for what we're going to be launching with you. And I would highly suggest to reach out to him if this is of interest to you, if it's a pain point for you. I always say it's a pain or pleasure. And his platform is next level. So Stephen, honey, thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show. So glad that you're here in my house, by the way. And you guys, I love you to death. Thank you for always tuning in. If you found this valuable, please share this with other colleagues and your teammates. Leave me some feedback. And I cannot wait to see you guys on the next episode of In Touch with Terri. Ciao, guys.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terri. If you'd like to take your practice further faster, Terri Ross has launched her business and sales mentorship for the first time, and it's available to everyone. No more spending thousands on conferences. Get Terri's expert knowledge for a fraction of the cost. Head over to patreon.com/Terri Ross Consulting and sign up now. We'll have the link in the episode notes to get you in on this groundbreaking offer. This is your chance to get ahead, so don't miss it.